Let's welcome Kelly Accetta, an expert on gender issues, author of How to Defuse the Landmines We Plant in Our Lives. Find her on Twitter at Kelly, A-C-C-E-T-T-A. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Can we talk a little bit about the women running for president in 2020?
Absolutely.
So in 2018, a lot of the women that were running for House and Senate took, well, if they had military experience, they talked about being a woman in that context. There wasn't quite as much, at least to my eyes and ears, it wasn't quite as much vote for me because I'm a woman. It was much more vote for me because I'm a woman and I've experienced the following context, professional, personal, and the rest of it. What are 2020 candidates doing? How are they doing something? Have they all coalesced around one approach? How are they running for president?
You know, it's very interesting to witness, and it's funny. I was just watching an interview recently, and the CNN broadcaster was saying they haven't chosen a lane, and it's just kind of silly as a female they're not going to choose a lane. They have their own particular interests. They have their own particular agendas. And just like any candidate, they're going to just stand on those issues. So I think it's interesting that people, men, I think probably in particular, are looking for the women to just sort of clump together on one common platform. It just isn't happening.
I'm thinking less of a common platform and more of a mechanism, of a way of introducing themselves to the voters. I think lanes are crap, and I don't think that there's a single piece of good political science that reinforces the idea that that's how voters pick candidates. But you know, as I said, I mean, it was really striking in 2018. You got to see, like, oh, I was a fighter pilot, or I was this, or I did that, I was a prosecutor, I did this. And I'm trying to understand, I mean, some of these folks just don't have the kind of name recognition that, say, a Joe Biden does. And so I've been sort of intrigued, and maybe the answer is there isn't a sort of a universal approach here because these are all different candidates. But how would you assess how these women are introducing themselves to voters and going about courting some support?
Well, I mean, Tulsi Gabbard is an Army vet, so she's advocating for survivors of sexual assault in the military. That's one of her big issues. And so, again, that is a very passionate point for her. Kirsten Gillibrand is, you know, she's a feminist, and she's, you know, all about family bills of rights and family leave, and she's all about the family and equal pay and you know, all the things that have to do with that. Kamala Harris is a prosecutor, and she's going after all sorts of you know, corruption and things like that because that's what lights her up, that's what fires her up. And you know, Marianne Williamson she's just all about love, and you know, that's what she's focused on. And it's really, they're all very unique, and they really are. And you know, I guess the contender from what people are saying is Elizabeth Warren, and she's sort of a combination of all of them. I think, unfortunately, if I look at her, I kind of almost feel like she's trying to be the catch-all, and she's, you know, for veterans, survivor of sexual assault in, you know, the military. She's for the, you know, gender pay gap issue. She's for Medicare, you know, policy for all. She's, you know, focusing on the financial issues, and in my opinion is a bit alarmist about it, but you know, she's just sort of kind of combined all of those platforms, and she's just going after it all.
So sitting here, one of the things that I found interesting about the Warren candidacy, and whether you like or dislike her policies or agree or disagree with her, I think that this is basically true, that she's using a lot of these policy plans that she's rolled out to tell a story about America, to sort of provide a coherent worldview, and to harness what, again, from here looks like a sentiment that runs something like the system is not working for you. You're not imagining it. It really isn't working for you. And I agree with you that it's not working for you. And so I'm going to set about changing it. And it feels maybe less to me as a catch-all than as an attempt to present a worldview to voters, just to signal that she agrees with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, you can't be everything to every voter. and that can backfire on you. You really do need to focus and, in my opinion, take a stand on certain things. If you try to be everything to everyone, it's just not possible, and you're going to, at some point, drop the ball.
Kelly, where do we stand now in July of 2019 on the Me Too phenomenon in politics, do you think?
You know, it's, unfortunately, the studies are showing that with all the gains that we made, with really having people in the entertainment industry, the business, field, and also in politics, that there was a lot of spotlight shed on the problem, and unfortunately, the research that's just come back, it shows that men are more uncomfortable than they were prior to the Me Too movement. They're 60% more uncomfortable dealing with women, and that's not healthy. You know, we need to be able to have mentors, male mentors, great working relationships with men. So I think we need to kind of shift the pendulum from just, I hate to say the extreme, because we went from one extreme to the other. I think we need to get back to communicating in a healthy way and not just lopping people's heads off. And unfortunately, in politics and in the entertainment industry, those tend not to have the human resources department that corporations do, where if something's going on, you can take it to human resources, you can discuss it with the person that you're working with directly, you can go to human resources if something doesn't change. You know, in the entertainment business, there's one key person that's driving the whole company usually, their talent, their ability, or their campaign, and it's very difficult to confront the lead person on bad behavior.
Talking to Kelly Accetta. If you can find her on Twitter at Kelly, Accetta. She's an expert on gender issues and the author of How to Defuse the Landmines We Plant in Our Lives. You know, the discomfort from men, though, in the face of Me Too, I mean, some of it, and I don't know if this applies to the research that you were citing, but some of it is guys who are like, well, fine, if that's how it's going to be, then I'm just not going to have meetings with one woman. I'm just not going to do X, Y, Z, which seems, from where I sit as a guy, a touch petulant.
It is, and it's some of the men that I've talked to, it's that, but a lot of men are just, they kind of like, I don't know what's offensive to women. I seem to just kind of say something and set someone off. And, you know, we as women, you have to understand, as a man, we women, one in three of us have endured some sort of sexual harassment or sexual abuse. And with that comes baggage. And men just have to be understanding and sensitive to that fact that, you know, an off-color joke that might not offend one woman could really offend another. Or, you know, a touch on the shoulder, or a inappropriate, like Joe Biden, you know, kissing the head of this woman who was about to walk on stage and give a speech. I mean, you know, it's just inappropriate. And I think the Me Too movement has done a fantastic job to really open up the conversation. And that's really what we need to do, is not have these knee-jerk responses, but have conversations, and without judgment, without the ferociousness that sometimes we can get, because they don't know where we're coming from. So again, it just goes back to respectful communication.
Kelly, were you surprised to see that piece in the New Yorker in which Al Franken said he regretted resigning, and at least the men who called on him to resign also expressed that same regret?
No, I'm not familiar with it. I really don't know why he would regret that decision. That was really inappropriate what he did, and you know, and then to kind of belittle it is even more disturbing.
You know, you alluded to something I think is interesting. When my dad was a college administrator, he told me that the most powerful person on a college campus is whoever is the liaison to the insurance company, because they drive so much policy. They drive because liability. And one thing that kind of struck me is how much of the conversation around Me Too has been defined by liability more than humanity, if I could be a little cheesy for a second here. I have an impossible plan. My plan is to pair 8th grade boys with at least one 8th grade girl space friend, someone they can talk to their entire lives, instead of having a relationship defined by, by someone with a Esquire at the end of their name.
It has, with the legal aspect being thrown in, that's what I think has really curbed the sexual harassment and the openness in corporations, because now it's not just an individual that is being held accountable. If someone comes to HR and expresses something that's happened that's very inappropriate between a boss and herself, or himself, men are victims sometimes too, but now the corporation is also on the line if they ignore it. The university is also on the line if they ignore it. In the past, it would only fall on the shoulders of that particular employee or that particular educator or that particular, but now, and as it should be, if they get report after report and don't investigate it and don't do any kind of reprimanding or adjusting that female out from underneath that direct report, and keep that situation, just ignore it, they are, kind of feeding into the problem. So I do think that from a liability standpoint, that now universities, companies, and all these different entities are also on the line. I mean, look at forget what kind of a TV show he was hosting. It was a children's show on the BBC, and it was, I guess, about 5 years ago. And he had been sexually inappropriate with children for decades, and everyone knew it.
Right.
So I really am thankful that it is now not just the individual being held accountable, but it's also the corporation, because they can't just sweep it under the rug anymore.
I got to tell you that the open secret part of a lot of these scandals is what boggles my mind reliably.
I don't understand it. To me, and this is my personal opinion, if you know about something like that and you don't say anything, in my opinion, you're just as bad as the person doing it.
All right, Kelly Accetta, expert on gender issues, author of How to Defuse the Landmines We Plant in Our Lives, on Twitter at Kelly Accetta, Accetta. Kelly, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.